Okay, so good morning, everybody. We're going to today we're going to this is nice. We have a nice crowd today here. We're going to discuss the Amidah, Musaf, Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh. All this stuff together. So, so we are on page 466 in the bottom, on the bottom. Now, let's kind of like understand where we are. What are we doing? We discussed last week the Amidah for Musaf for Shabbat. And particularly, we discussed the Kedushat Hayom, the middle bracha. And today we're going to discuss what happens when Shabbat coincides with the Rosh Chodesh. Right, so that happens, on an average, something like once a year, something like twice a year. I'm not so sure. Look, some years it doesn't happen at all. Some years it happens 2-3 times, average, whatever. And so what happens? So as we discussed last week, Kedushat Hayom, i.e. the middle bracha for Musaf, deals with Shabbat, period. What part of Shabbat, or what element of Shabbat? We're talking about the Korban, the offering, the Musaf offering of Shabbat. And then we said that in the heart of every Musaf service, there's going to be the breakdown or the quote of the psukim that talks about that particular offering, as specified in the Torah. All right, so we have Shabbat and all that kind of stuff. What happens on Rosh Chodesh? On Rosh Chodesh, in addition, so in Rosh Chodesh there are 3 korbanot. When Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, right? On Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, there are 3 korbanot in the temple, right? First of all, they had the morning, the Tamid Shel Shachar. It's called Tamid, always. Doesn't matter what day of the week or like holiday or not. It's always in the morning, right? That's Shacharit. Then they had also the Korban Musaf for Shabbat, which is, as we know, Shnei Chvasim b'nei Shana Tmimim u'shnei Esronim solet mulcha v'olah b'sheven v'nisko olat Shabbat b'Shabbato olot Tapit v'niska. Okay. And then they had a third offering for Rosh Chodesh. Uvrashei chodshechem, we're going to get, you know what? Let's just want to show you 468 in the bottom. Look, under the line. 468, under the line. Second paragraph. וברשי חודשיכם תקריבו עולה לאדוני, פרים בני בקר 2 ועיל 1, כבשים בני שנה 7 תמימים. In the English, 469, second paragraph under the line. On the first days of your month, you are to bring an elevation offering to Hashem, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male, first year lamb, unblemished. If you were wondering what is exactly the offering, this is the offering. Okay. By the way, what does it mean, elevation offering? Korban Olah. What the characteristic of Korban Olah versus Korban Shlamim, Korban Edava, Korban whatever? Korban Olah is completely burned. Okay, completely burned. It's like there's no leftovers. The Kohanim get nothing. No lunch. They get other lunch, don't worry. And especially if you remember on Shabbat, like before Shabbat, they have the lechem apanim. I got tons amount of chalas, so they'll be fine. But from that korban, they get nothing. Korban olah is a korban that is completely burned, all because it's for God. Okay. The korbanot, the other korbanot, the kohanim get portions. Okay, fine. We're not going to get into that. So we said you had the offering of the Tamid, the morning, and then you had the Shabbat, and then the Rosh Chodesh. And by the way, if you look exactly where we read, you'll see that the Korban of the Shabbat, the quote is the top paragraph, right? So we see the psukim that talk about the Shabbat offering, and then the one about Rosh Chodesh. And that was the order in which the Korban was brought, the Korbanot were brought in Beit HaMikdash. First, it was the everyday, then the Shabbat one, and then the Rosh Chodesh one. And from that, we actually learn a halachic principle. Exactly. Tadir b'she'enot tadir, tadir kodem. That which is more frequent comes first. And we apply that all the time. So for example, in our tefillot, so let's talk about that. So you see that we have the offering for Shabbat, we have the offering for Rosh Chodesh. What comes first? Shabbat. Okay. In our tefillot, for example, if it's a Rosh Chodesh, right? So we have Shir Shel Yom, right? The Psalm of the day. What comes first? It's the Psalm of the day, or it's going to be the one for Rosh Chodesh? Psalm of the day. Because it comes, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Correct. You mentioned Shabbat ve Yom Tov. Correct.
Told them to do it like this beginning.
I guess there was, look, according to our tradition, so it's not only that the Torah was given to Moshe, there was a lot of oral Torah that was given to him, right? He learned the Torah from God, right? What does he do? Like then for 40 days in the mountains, like it's only bringing the tablets? No, he was learning the Torah, right? So there's a lot of material that was not written down that's the basis for our Torah Shebe'al Peh. Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral Torah is not something that just was made up. It's based on traditions, right? So we tend to think of the oral tradition, the oral law from the Mishnah, for example. Okay, so we can say Mishnah and then the Talmud and then the later on. But those guys in the times of the Mishnah, where did they got from? It's not that they woke up in the morning and said, "Okay, I'm going to make those rules all of a sudden." No, it's based on their right. If you look in actually in Pirkei Avot here, look at where is it? Page. The first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot, 544. Right? The first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot, actually, let's take a look at the English, 545. Moses received the Torah from Sinai and transmitted it to Yoshua to the elders to the prophets, and the prophets transmitted to the men of the great assembly. Okay, so there's like a whole procession that oh yeah, every generation added much stuff, of course.
Originally.
That's a philosophical idea, yes and no. Sometimes yes, sometimes it's actually, I don't want to go into that because that could be like a whole semester. But the point is, it's an interesting point what you're bringing up. A lot of our practices and halachot today are, most of them, technically, we have what we observe today is rabbinic Judaism. Okay, so you say, okay, we have to go and see, like, what's the origin? The origins in the Torah. The Torah talks about korbanot. If you want to stick with the Torah, you're going to be in a big problem, right? So you need to understand where it comes from and all the, all the way and what's was added and how it was developed. Generally, we talk about evolution. It's not just additions, but evolution. Okay, so the laws are interpreted in a different way and applied in a different way and then reinterpreted and this is how we end up. Correct, because the reality changes, right? One day you have the temple. Oops, now I don't have the temple. Oops, there's this thing called electricity. What do I do about that? And every day there's like new issues that you have to deal with. Organ donation, like, and in times of the Talmud, they could never think of such a thing, right? So reality changes, evolves, and since we believe that the principles of the Torah are eternal and apply to every generation, it is our job to interpret that and make it relevant. We don't, and that's, by the way, one of the fundamental differences with the Reform movement. The Reform movement said, like, halakha is not something that you obligated to. And traditional Judaism says, no, I am. Now, you can interpret the law in different ways and you can apply it in different ways. This is why you have a whole spectrum of opinions about pretty much everything. But the principle is the principle. We interpret and reinterpret and apply and change or whatever, but it's not that we say, well, it's not relevant. It's like, well, okay. No, that's a different stuff. Siyag Torah is a principle that you say, I don't want people to do A, so I'm going to tell them don't do B because to make sure that they will never do A. Offense. Okay, that's a different principle. Okay, let's go back to 466 under the line Atayat Tzarta. Okay. So the themes of Shabbat, we know. The Korban of Shabbat, we know. We already talked about, so we know the themes of Shabbat. You're going to have creation, you're going to have revelation, you're going to have redemption. We talked about that. We saw that throughout the different Amidot. What are the themes, or kind of like if I want to crunch it, like simple theme idea of Rosh Chodesh? What is it all about? What is it? Okay, fine. And who cares?
Well, we involve our holidays around that.
Okay, fine. So this one thing is calendar. Good. Because the Jewish year is based on the lunar year. Okay, fine. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, great. But in a more, okay, rebirth. And I would say perhaps more accurately is renewal. Right? This idea of renewal is what it's kind of the theme of a Rosh Chodesh, basically. Right? Okay. It's a new birth, it's a new beginning, it's a new chance to start again. Okay. We can develop that a lot, right? Every day is a new beginning, correct? Look, in Judaism, there's this idea of we kind of like live our lives in cycles. And the idea is it's not only the cycles, we're supposed to stay on a certain path. And what happens is that throughout the year, we have those, I call them corrections. And there's like big corrections, like maintenance. And the smaller ones that we have to do in order to stay on the path. So I'll give you an example how it works. So 3 times a day we daven, right? Shacharit mincha arbit. We say slachnu avinu ki chatanu mechalanu malkenu ki fashanu. Forgive us, our Father, because we have sinned. Okay, so it's already like I'm thinking about the stuff that I've done wrong today. 3 times a day, I need to take a pause. I need to rethink. Okay, what did I do today? Was this the best form of me? Right? And I say sorry because for sure I did something wrong. right? Okay. Then, for example, Mondays and Thursdays, if you look at the long Tachanun, you'll see there's a lot of additions to that. Okay, so twice a week I have like a bigger like little zets that's supposed to bring me back on the path. Okay, and then I have Rosh Chodesh. We're going to talk about that. Rosh Chodesh is considered to be Zman Kapara. It's a time of atonement. Now we understand why it's a time of atonement. Why? Because it's connected to this renewal, new start, new beginning, new opportunities, right? And then I have, of course, the big one. It's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It's the time of Tshuva. But what happens if I don't do that every day, like a little bit on every day, and then like, on a weekly, on a monthly basis, whatever, and I wait like a whole year? I'm not gonna be even on, not to mention I'm gonna be like, weaving from one lane to the other. I'm gonna be on a totally different highway. Exactly. Right? It's like, you try to be good and be on a diet, okay, or whatever. So everybody cheats. Sometimes you cheat. Sometimes, like, whatever. There's something really yummy. What can I do? Like, okay, so I did that, the ice cream or whatever that is, right? If you're gonna say, okay, the hell with that. I already took the ice cream, so that's it. I'm off the wagon, done, finished, kaput. Like, that's it, party time. I'm not gonna be 5 pounds away from my goal. I'm gonna be 50 pounds away from my goal. But if at that point, I'm saying, okay, it happened. Now I'm back on track, right? Okay. And that's pretty much the approach. That's the hope. That's the hope.
Well, isn't that, we always have to days off in the spring.
I'm not talking about the calendar. I'm talking about our behavior. Yeah, to make sure that we're on the right path. And by the way, that translates to halacha. I'll give you like interesting halacha. That approach, it's in Judaism, it translates to halacha. Let's assume it's a fast day. Okay, so in a couple of weeks, it's going to be Asara B'Tevet. Okay, I got up in the morning. I forgot. It's a fast day. Whatever. I had my breakfast, whatever that is. I forgot. Now I have two options. I can say, okay, already broke it. That's it. Bring it out and just feast or whatever. It's a regular day. I can do whatever, or I started that point. What's the halacha? Shulchan Aruch is very clear about that. Yashlim ta'anito. You fast from that. Okay, fine. It happened. Like whatever. You forgot. Is it perfect? No. So you have now not 24 hours of I'm sorry, these are the short ones. 12 hours or so, whatever fast you have, like whatever, 10. Doesn't matter. Yashlim ta'anito. And that is the approach that we have in Judaism overall, right? If somebody has committed a sin, we don't say, okay, that's it. Now I have like a free ticket. I can do whatever I want. Oh, well, we all. We're not saying that. We say like, okay, yeah, next time, hopefully it's going to be better. But the fact that you've done something wrong doesn't mean that you have now the right to continue. It's not, black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. Okay, and that's pretty much that's the philosophy, right? So that is what happens on Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is this opportunity to restart, renewal. By the way, there's a tradition that Rosh Chodesh is it's called a holiday for women or a women's holiday. Now I understand why, because the whole monthly cycle, that is the connection, right? That's, you can, go into that, whatever, but there is something that happens every month. Okay? In a similar way to the moon. Okay, there's like a lot of ideas connected to that, that we show our faith, because just like, we have like, this faith that the moon is going to grow, even though it's very small, we don't even see it, but we have faith, we know it's gonna, this all that stuff. Okay, now let's take a look here. So what we know is those themes of Rosh Chodesh, we can already imagine that those themes of Rosh Chodesh are going to be incorporated together with the themes of Shabbat into this blessing. You fashioned your world from of old. Okay? First of all, interesting word. Yatzarta. To create. Who is the only one who can create? Hashem. Right? We can take a rock and make it into something beautiful, a sculpture or whatever. I can take paint and paper and do something with that. Nechama can make something beautiful. I can do something, whatever that is, right? But I can't create. We use that term in English, to create, but to create is basically out of nothing. I can create something out of nothing. God is the only one who can create something out of nothing. Olamcha, your world from Kedem, right? So that's reference to what? Bereshit, the creation, story of creation, which is already reverberates the theme of creation, which we know is already connected to Shabbat, because Shabbat is Zecher Lemase Bereshit. Thank you. Okay. You completed your work on the seventh day. Again, we're still there. It's what we call Shabbat of creation. God finished. Okay, so we're definitely in the themes of Shabbat here. Ahavta otanu veratzita banu. If you remember this idea of Ahavta otanu veratzita banu, we see that in the tefillot of Shabbat. We saw those ideas that God, you loved us, and you, how they translated, found favor in us. What is this alluding to? What theme of Shabbat? God choosing us. Okay, we're the chosen people, but in the context of Shabbat, because we're going to talk about that much more in the context of the Shalosh Regalim. The Shalosh Regalim, in the holidays, we really highlight this idea of choosing us. Okay? But because what? Because the holiday represent those choices that God has made. What are the holidays? Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. What happened in Pesach? God chose us, and because of that, He took us out of Egypt. God chose us, and because of that, He gave us the Torah. That's Shavuot. And God chose us, and because of that, He protected us in the desert. That's Sukkot. So here, in the context of Shabbat, Shabbat is what? Also, we call it Zecher. No, we talked about that. That's now it's a different. Thank you. Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim. Right? Shabbat is the symbol for Yetziat Mitzrayim also. We said it many times. In the most basic way. Why? What is it that happens, the difference between somebody who's free and somebody who's slave? No, I understand that. Oh.
Their own time.
Okay, and to be more specific in terms of Shabbat, a slave cannot stop or rest, cannot stop doing work. So the fact that somebody can stop, that's already a testament that that person is a free man or woman. Yeah, so this is why Shabbat is Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim. Right? It's the Exodus. where we were no longer slaves and we became free people. Okay? So, ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך. So you gave us those mitzvot, and through those mitzvot, you sanctified us. Or the way I like it, it's a little bit different take on that. You gave us the mitzvot, and through the mitzvot, we can sanctify our actions and our world. וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, and you brought us near to your avodah. Okay, the avodah is, let's call it worship, whatever that is, whether it's tefillah, whether this is offering, all that kind of stuff. It's that thing that we do with God. Okay, it's not only that time of tefillah, it's our entire relationship with God. Avodat Hashem, as a term, is not only when I come to shul and I daven for those, whatever, 2 hours or whatever, you know, as long as the chazan decides that I need to be in that room. But it's something that's supposed to impact me in everything I do. The way I interact with people has to be part of that. If I recognize that every person was created in the image of God, and I remember that, then my interaction with people is going to be in a particular way. If I, you know, so everything I do is, the way I look at it, at least, is avodah. V'shimcha hagadol v'akadosh aleinu karata. Okay, and you've proclaimed upon us your great and holy name. Fine. That kind of is the statement. Kind of like, fine. Now, very nice. Great. So we mentioned we already have the connection to Shabbat. We understand that. Our relationship with God, great. Fantastic. Now we get into a little bit the tachlis here. V'titen lanu Hashem Elokeinu be'ahava, and you gave us with love Shabbatot limnucha, for contentment, and so far no news here. We know that we're in Shabbat. Ve'rashei chodashim lechapara, and new moons for atonement. Rosh Chodesh is a time of atonement. As we said, it's that cycle. It's this idea of new beginnings, new chances. What is the atonement? Well, part of the Korban was atonement. There's a whole debate. There's a variety of opinions on what kind of atonement we're talking about. So one opinion, for example, and this is how it's also connected to the other element of Rosh Chodesh, which has to do with the calendar, the lunar year and the calendar, is that the Korban, the atonement that we seek, is for the possibility that the Beit Din made a mistake in declaring Rosh Chodesh or a leap year. Today, you check the Bet Jacob calendar and you know when is Rosh Chodesh, when Pesach comes, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And basically the way we do things today is based on the calculation started from the times of Hillel. However, as you know, before that, for many, 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 many years, it was what we called Kiddush HaChodesh al pi re'iyah. It means that witnesses came to the Beit Din in Yerushalayim, to the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim. They said, we saw the new month, and based on that, the Sanhedrin, the Beit Din, declared Rosh Chodesh. Guess what? Sometimes there are mistakes, or there's a potential for mistake. And based on the calculations and all the discussion and all that kind of stuff, sometimes, right, every 2-3 years, depends on the whatever, the Beit Din decides also that we need to add a month. Well, they can make a mistake as well. Who cares? Now you tell me, okay, who cares? Okay, that's fine, but why this is important though? What? No. That's part of the calculation today. That's part of the system that Hillel came. But What's the big deal? What is the big deal if Rosh Chodesh is a day here or a day there? If we added a month, no, it's not? Okay. So let me tell you why it does. It is a big deal. Okay, it adds up. Because the Torah says, for example, that Pesach has to be on the 15th of Nisan. What if the Beit Din made a mistake by 2 days? It throws it all off. So for us, it's going to be the 15th, but actually in reality, it's going to be the 17th. And so what happens on the 15th? We eat chametz.
Some stories about where it was like a debate, one rabbi said one day, and one said the other day, and.
Correct.
So they were doing, I think it was the Yom Kippur.
Correct.
On the wrong day, maybe you go according to the Beth.
You go according to the Beit Din. Correct. I'm not saying that there's something you can do about it, but you still need to say, sorry.
It's Hashem's fault. He told us to do that. He knows we're fallible.
Here is, look, you're touching upon something like much more profound than you think. Yes, Hashem created that system. That system is imperfect for a reason, because we are not perfect and we need to work with that system. And the idea is that we need to strive to make it as perfect as possible. Here is the thing, though. If everything was perfect and we had no challenges, then what's the point of being a believer? There's no challenge. There's no questions. Everything is clear. Everything is simple. That's the anti-belief. Belief, the whole point is to live with that doubt. I hope, look, I believe I do everything right. It's a discipline, but it's also like, I hope I do the right thing. I do my best. As far as I know, God doesn't tell us, yes, no, whatever, you're wrong, you're right. We need to find that inner voice within us, ask a rabbi, whatever that is, and you hope for the best. There's no guarantee. And that's the essence of believing. That's the essence. Because if it's math, if it's absolute, then there's no challenge.
Why does it happen?
Because then what's the point? You don't have to think of anything. Everything there's rules, and we're basically going to be robots. That's not what God wanted us. For that, he has the angels. These are the robots. They have no feelings. They have no desires. They make no mistakes. The angels.
What makes us different?
Correct. Correct. The what? I'm sorry? Yeah.
See yourself, how you love God, how you appreciate God, how you make the korbanot, everything is in it, and it's like a core with a very good foundation, something that cannot change, even if you have different thoughts, or even if you want to think a little different, you have to come to the core of it, because from there, everything springs out.
Okay. So you have to come to the core, but you might end up one interpretation and somebody else is going to come with a different interpretation, which is fine, which is totally fine. And this is why things change. Well, yes, absolutely. But then you can debate what's the core also. I'm just making it hard for you. Okay. So this is the idea of the chapara. Right? This is the idea of kapara. You want to make it relevant, because for me, thinking about the Beit Din that maybe made a mistake or not, it's kind of not so much relevant to our life in 2024. Yeah, still 2024. Or this idea of that offering, the atonement, also not really resonate. Let's be honest, doesn't really resonate with us today. So The way I like to think about it is my personal cheshbon. It's my personal Rosh Chodesh is the time I really think, can I make the next? I'm not like, doing this and say like I was bad. That's not going to get me anywhere. I prefer to look at the positive, acknowledge what was not, and I'm thinking, can I be better? Can I do better next month? I think that if we did that, then you gain something. It's not going to be perfect. It's not that like we can change everything. How many times we tried that diet and we failed? Okay, but you keep trying, which is part of the Jewish philosophy. You keep trying. You don't give up. Okay. Now, I didn't bring that siddur from last week. Here we're going to have something that is similar to what we had last week. Remember last week we compared this with the conservative siddur, that where they took that stuff and move it to the past tense as a historic reference rather than tefillah. Okay, here it is. We have like something similar. Because we sinned before you, we and our forefathers. Excuse me? Okay, maybe I've sinned, that's fine, but what exactly are you talking about? Let's read the continuation of the sentence. חרבה עירנו, ושמם בית מקדשנו, וגלה יקרנו, וניטל כבוד מבית חיינו. Where is it?
In the middle.
Yeah, I know, somewhere. Our city was taken from the house of our life. No.
City was destroyed.
Thank you. And okay, so what are you talking about? I did that? I was not even in planning. That happened 2,000 years ago. What are you talking about? Chatanu? As a Jewish nation. But you can say Shechat'u avotenu lefanecha. No, wouldn't be that more accurate? Okay, so say our ancestors, but I was not in planning. Maxine, you were not in planning also 2,000 years ago. Yes. So what is it?
Like you should see yourself coming out of Mitzrayim.
Okay.
We're all the same people.
And not only that, there's a beautiful midrash, forgot where, but it appears in the Talmud that every generation in which the temple was not built, should see itself as the temple was destroyed. In other words,
One has the potential to have it built.
correct.
And if it wasn't, then it's your fault.
To some extent, yes. Yeah, talk about some Jewish guilt, for sure.
Saying Rosh Chodesh is wrong.
Here's the thing. Here's where I want to argue. Is it that God wants us to have guilt?
Yeah, he wants that 9 feelings.
You
so that
sure?
it's better. Exactly.
I'm not so sure that he wants us to have the guilt. He wants us to get better.
Not just to feel bad.
Exactly. He wants us to constantly work on it. How can I be better? Can I be better? What can I do better all the time? That is, I think, the point here. And that's the Jewish way. But it's also part of this idea of the collective story. It's that chain. I'm a link in that chain. What have I done to change that situation? Well, I guess not enough because the temple is not built. So not enough. So yes, I'm part of that chain also. I'm looking at it as something comforting also because I'm part of a longer chain. Okay? Now. Yes.
and what is exactly the meaning of this thereafter? We always have, I don't understand why we have to repeat.
But it's nothing to do with after. Look at the text. ולפי שחטאנו לפניך, אנחנו באבותינו, חרבה עירנו ושמם בית מקדשנו וגלה עיקרנו ונטל כבוד בבין חיינו. Because we have sinned, Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed. That's what we're saying here. No, it's not all the time. It's not all the time. It's here on that once a month. We're going to have it, by the way, on the holidays also. I'm just going to give you a preview. When it comes to the holidays, it's a big deal. Why? Because part of the essence of the holiday, I'm talking about the regalim for now, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. What is the one central mitzvah of the regalim in the times of the temple? Aliyah la-regel. And so when the temple is destroyed and there's no Aliyah la-regel and everybody's exiled, so that part of the holiday is missing. Okay? So it's not as big as in the holidays, but this is like, it's the same idea. Now, but it's an intro. And here's where it goes to. So we said, because we've sinned, the temple was destroyed, Jerusalem is destroyed, and so you say, okay, so what? Here we go. This is the what. ואין אנחנו יכולים לעשות חובותינו בבית בחירתך, בבית הגדול והקדוש הנקרא שמך עליו, מפני היד שנשתלחה במקדשך. We are unable to bring those sacrifices. I get it, but it's still, look, if I'm going to tell, my daughter broke a piece of glass, okay? It's her fault. Does it change the fact that I asked her to take that, whatever, piece of glass and put it in the cabinet? No, I still gave her instruction. She's unable to fulfill it because she broke it on the way. So
either you or she needs to change the order.
No, or just say, okay, you are unable to fulfill it. And because of that, I'm going to give you a different task or something else to do. But it doesn't change the fact that that piece of glass is not in the cabinet. That's exactly it here. The Torah commands us to bring those sacrifices. So I get it, it's my fault. Fine, it's my fault, I get it. But the Torah is the Torah. The pasuk is still there. And I can't fulfill it. And this is what I'm saying here. God, it's not that I don't want to do it. I can't.
You will tell this to the Muslims who are not there.
That's why
we can't build the.
that's why. That's really important.
We're staying in the theoretical world, the world of tefillah. Okay, so we're saying, God, listen, it's not that I don't want to do it. I can't. You broke the game. I can't continue playing because you broke it. And it's not that I did it. מפני היד שנשתלחה במקדשך. The outstretched hand. That's not a coincidence that we use that word. Whose hand? God's hand. Okay, it's based on what the Navi says.
So we're saying he did it?
Of course. Well, he caused that. No. It's our fault. It's our fault. But he is behind all that stuff. God orchestrates the whole thing. It's God's hand, right? We blew it, okay? We were supposed to be, I'm making it simple. We were supposed to be better. We blew it. We got the punishment. Temple was destroyed. I get it. It's my fault, but I can, you know.
But it's interesting that it sounds like Hashem actually did something rather than it let it happen.
No, God did that. God brought whatever the army, whatever the enemy that destroyed the temple.
We're not saying it.
Yes, we say. What is the yad? Whose hand? God's hand.
But
It's God's hand that did that. Now, this is all description. This is like I'm just stating the facts. Temple is broken. Can't bring the sacrifices. I get it. I blew it. It's my fault. But still, it's broken. Now the question is, what do you do with that? It's like you know, when my kids like fighting, it's like, you know, it's not my fault. It's not, who cares? I told you guys to do something, to work it out, whatever. It's like, it's not my fault. Do I really care whose fault is this? I want that room cleaned up. I did. Okay, fine. That's you already like, you skip. You're taking, no, but you're talking also about the technicality. I'm talking about the idea. What do you do with that? So this is the next sentence. And here, this is where we differ from the conservative Siddur. יהי רצון לפניך השם אלוקינו ואלוהי אבותינו, שתעלנו בשמחה לארצנו ותטענו בגבולנו. So yes, even though blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, I'm still asking you, God, to bring me back to the chosen land. ושם נעשה לפניך את קורבנות חובותינו תמידים כסדרם ומוספים כהלכתם. And when you bring me back, because the redemption in our terminology, it means a redemption. It's not only aliyah through nefesh benefesh, but it's also like the whole thing. Okay? That means we will be able to, how do you translate it here? Perform before you the required offerings. Okay? Whatever that means. According to their order. This is the difference between this and the conservative Siddur. The conservative Siddur says, Shesham asu lefanecha avotenu et korbanot. Correct, but here's the thing. Here's the difference. Here's the main difference, Shelley. It's not a request anymore. It's not a tefillah. It's not. I'm just stating a historic fact. Okay, that's fine. I agree. I agree. But what's the purpose? God knows the history. Well, what's the point?
To just go to Israel.
To what? But it's partial. It's partial.
Do they have
They actually, it's interesting. This is very interesting. It depends on which Siddur you look at, the conservative. Some of them will do that the more traditional ones. Most of them are not going to have that line, but what they're going to say, they have a quote, I want to say from the book of Micha, I don't remember, one of the prophets, they said, Hameshiv banim ligvulam. God, who is able to bring the children back to their land. It's not a request. It's a description of God. Yes, God has the ability to do that. It's a theological fundamental difference here. Now, we discussed that before. I'm not so sure that most of us want to have sacrifices in the way it was. For me, what resonates with me is what Rav Kook describes, that in the third temple, No, it's not going to say musaf. The third temple is basically going to be an academy for ethics and laws and whatever, where we actually educate the rest of the world. The only offering is going to be incense and flour. It's not going to be any animal sacrifices. There's a whole variety of opinions. Okay, if you ask Ben Gvir, he'll tell you yes, and we need to, slaughter lambs probably now, even. Okay, so it depends who you're asking, but point is how what is it that you're asking? In our tradition, the way we said, we ask God specifically to bring us back and some sort of as part of the redemptive process. Yes, Chaya.
So
Yeah.
Already was done because we do live in Israel today, but we don't have Beth Amikdash.
And the fact that we live there, and that's by the way, some authorities claim, Orthodox one, very Zionist, claim that we need to do some adjustments to those particular texts as well. I'll give you one example, better example. In Tisha B'Av, there's the particular section that we add in the Amidah called Nachem, right? That talks about destruction of Yerushalayim and all that kind of stuff. A lot of rabbis throughout the years said, like, this is ridiculous. Yerushalayim is bigger, stronger, much better than ever in Jewish history, and we need to adjust that. One of the, strong voices about that is, what's his name? He's my neighbor. He teaches at Yula. Rabbi. No. It's Et Shalom. And many others say we need to, yes, we need to do that. And that's get into a whole different discussion when it comes to that stuff that are more frequent. Do we need to make adjustments in our tefillot? That's a kind of question that we're not going to answer today. It's a whole. Do we need to make adjustments in tefillot to reflect the reality? Okay, you can say, well, yes. Otherwise, we don't say the truth, or you say, listen, I get it. However, that is the tradition. This is the way my ancestors davened. That's the, and so my philosophy is find something in between. Okay, I'll give you a good example. If you look in the Ahava Rabbah, right, in the blessing before the Shema every day. Okay, let's take a look at that for a second.
When Mashiach comes, are we even going to have all this?
Well, when Mashiach comes, we're going to have a lot of things that we're going to have to change. Let's put it this way. It's going to be a lot of work. Okay, page 90. Second line. When we say V'tolichenu komimiyut, and here is a huge debate. Should we say le'artzenu, or you say be'artzenu? Right? A lot of authorities, a lot of rabbis said, well, if you live in Israel, yeah, you say be'artzenu, replace that lamed with a bet. So this is a tiny, subtle change, but it means a lot. Allow us to walk upright with pride in our land, not to our land, in our land, because we're already in our land. And these are the type of stuff that we're talking about, and that's a much bigger, broader discussion. Okay. Yeah, so not necessarily. Okay. And then I just want to finish that paragraph. And then, right, if you enable us to go back to our land and bring those sacrifices, then both the musaf of Shabbat and the musaf of Rosh Chodesh, we will perform before you with love, according to the mitzvah, the way you commanded us, as it's written in the Torah by Moshe, and it says blah blah blah, and here are the quotes of the psukim that specify what is it indeed that we are commanded to bring as an offering on Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. Then 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph under the line, 468, under the line, fourth paragraph. Yismechu b'malchutcha shomrei Shabbat v'koreyonek. We already discussed that several times. That a little poem that we have as part of the Shabbat liturgy. We discussed that already. We don't need to repeat. And the bottom paragraph is the closing statement of that blessing. So let's do it quickly. It says, so far we know that language. It appears when it comes to Shabbat. Okay. May you be pleased with our rest. Okay, that's totally fine. And on this Shabbat day, inaugurate this month for good and for blessing, joy and gladness, for salvation and consolation, for substance and for support, for life, peace, pardon of sin. Again, what is that sin? Could be the sin of the Sanhedrin, could be our own sins. It doesn't matter, whatever resonates with you. And forgiveness of iniquity. As I said, it's a day of atonement. This is why we're asking, we say, I'm sorry, please forgive me for everything, all the bad stuff that I've done throughout the month. I'm hoping to be better. And in order to be better, I'm asking you to give me a month of joy, a month of sustenance, a month of happiness. Because if that's what I'm granted, I have a better chance of being better also. Right? This idea here is what we call Chatima me'ein bracha. That means, we already saw that before, that when it comes to a long brachot, we bring the kind of the essence, the theme of the bracha, we bring it back towards the conclusion, because we already went to many different directions. It's kind of like, focusing before the end. It's like, when you read like a whole essay and it's like in conclusion or in summary, that's that, okay? So this is kind of something that we see a lot when it comes to long brachot. Because you've chosen us, okay? That's v'shabbat kodshecha lahem odata. And you gave us Shabbat. With all the terminology, with all the what it means. And not only that, v'chukei rashei chodashim lahem kavata. And you made that decree of those laws of Rosh Chodesh. That means that our year is going to be based on the lunar year, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And the Chatima, which is the conclusion of the Bracha, Baruch Ata Hashem, Mekadesh HaShabbat, Ve'Yisrael, Ve'Rashei Chodashim. Why is that? First of all, Shabbat comes before, more frequent than Rosh Chodesh, and therefore Shabbat is going to be before Rosh Chodesh. But it's much more than that. Shabbat was created before Am Yisrael. Right? Shabbat was created in terms of creation. Am Yisrael was created later on. You can say Yaakov, Avraham, Moshe, I don't care. Okay? But it was later. But look at this now. How do we finish? Look, just above the line. On a regular Shabbat, we say, Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbat. Blessed are you, God, who sanctifies the Shabbat. Here, Baruch Ata Hashem, who sanctifies the Shabbat, Israel, and the new moons. I would argue that probably it would say sanctifies the Shabbat, and Israel, who sanctifies the new moon. That's, I think, a better translation. Okay, because again, who is the one that sanctifies the new moon? Us. We do that. We have the right to do that. And if we decide that Rosh Chodesh is going to be on this day or that day, then it means that Pesach is going to move. And if we decide that we're going to have a leap year, it means that Pesach is going to move from March to April. Right? This is our job, and God gave us, and how we say it, that God sanctified us, and we sanctify the Rosh Chodesh. So there's also a theological idea here. What do we do with the fact that God sanctifies us? No, the Shabbat is Shabbat. Nothing to do with us. Shabbat existed before Am Yisrael. God, it's Kviya V'Kaima, we say. It's from the times of creation. But Rosh Chodesh, Chagim, and by the way, that we're going to see the Chatima and the Chagim and the Shalosh Regalim liturgy, we're going to see Mekadesh Yisrael ve'Hazmanim. God who sanctified Israel, who sanctified the times. So on a philosophical, theological idea, what do we do with this? God sanctify us, but we don't sit and do nothing with that. Oh, God sanctify us. Great. We do nothing. No. We need to take that energy, I don't know why I use that word, whatever, that, right? Right? And we need to do something with that. So we continue Maaseh Bereshit. We become, by doing that, by sanctifying the month, we partner with God now. We continue creation. So we take that sanctification and we utilize it. We do something with that. And by doing so, we sanctify the month. By doing that, we advance the world. We have the ability to determine when Rosh Chodesh, when the holidays are going to be, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, which is a continuation of Maaseh Bereshit. And that's what, at the end, what God wants from us. God wants us to be partners in creation, to advance the world, to continue the work of creation. That's the whole thing.
This is what we have in Bereshit. It says what God created in 6 days and then Shabbat.
Yeah.